Thank you guys again for coming back for another video and another piece of the playlist segment for my 2007 GT500. What's going to feel like a million years later, I still do not have my garage clean. I thought life was going to be so much better with an extra garage spot, not having the SN95. Now it has just turned into a junk spot. Go figure. So, today we are addressing another puzzle piece to get through this, what it feels like, this never-ending saga with this GT500. It just feels like it's like a broken record of, and I don't want to say issues, but I mean, they're issues. It feels like, I feel like I'm a broken record dealing with issues with this car. I thought everything was going to be so great with this car, and this car fights me more than what I think it should fight me. This should have been a point and shoot cookie cutter setup, and the only other cookie cutter setup car I've owned was my Evo, and that was the same thing. That car just fought me every step of the way. So I think I'm starting to learn, don't do cookie cutter cars, cookie cutter setups, because the Kool-Aid doesn't taste quite as good as what everybody tells you it is going to taste like. So the main issue that I'm going to address today is going to be gear lockouts. So we already started venturing on that process with the N2MB watt box to get rid of that 1 to 2 gear lockout that is supposed to help. So I got that installed. I haven't tested it out yet because I do think I have a little bit more bigger issues than that. So what we're going to be installing today is going to be a CHE performance. I think they call it a K-member brace or torque brace, something of that nature. We're going to be installing that today. Basically, it is a K-member brace that goes across the bottom. It's going to have 2 adjustable braces that go up to the transmission. What I think is happening, it started off with 1 to 2 on digs, but now that I'm starting to notice, and it may just be more heat related, but I am starting to notice more now, either on a hard 2 to 3 gear on rolls, or that money gear. 3 to 4 has always been my money gear, and that's where I'm winning races, is that 3 to 4 shift. And I've been missing that a lot. I've been getting locked out a lot from 3 to 4, especially now that it's getting hotter out. So thinking about this a little bit more logically, again, you're going to hear me bitch about that MGW. I think that kind of made things worse, but I digress. That may be my imagination. So, logically thinking about this, I solidified the MGW that bolts into the, panel of the car, bolts underneath the car, makes the shifter nice and tight, and it bolts to the front of the tranny. Problem is that the motor can still twist and move around under very high load, and the transmission can shift and twist under very high load. So, 2 things I'm going to try. I tried the CHE torque limiters first that we're going to be doing today. That's going to bolt, and basically that's going to lock that transmission to the body of the car. So that transmission should not be able to move under load. If that thing is still giving me a problem under load, then the next thing we're going to do is a set of motor mounts. I wanted to try the CHE mounts first because it is a little bit cheaper and easier to do than the motor mounts. So we're going to try that first before we dip into that, just because the motor mounts get a little stiff sometimes, and I'm not sure I want to go that route. I know you guys are going to tell me, oh, it's synchros, it's synchros, it's synchros. It could very well be synchros. I don't buy that it's synchros, though. I've had bad synchros. I've blown synchros. I know what synchros feel like. It's a scratch. It will always do it, not just under high load. So you guys that are crazy on this being synchros, I get it. Some people told you on the internet it might be synchros, but I could be wrong. I'm no ASE certified mechanic, but I've done a few things, I've built a few things, and I've broke a lot of things in my days. I will tell you, my experience with synchros is it's always going to be the same scratch unless you're double clutching it. Lockouts I've experienced are usually clutch related, so I will say that this probably could very well be clutch related. I really am overpowering this clutch, but it could be clutch related. I will buy that. Could be fluid related. I don't like the fluids that are in it right now, so I may be dumping those. But I really do think that torque and stress and twisting under high load is what this problem is. The car shifts, I'm not going to say it shifts fantastic, but that could be the fluids. But when it's cool, it shifts good. If it's part throttle, it shifts good. You know, it shifts like a normal transmission within reason. When it starts getting hot, it starts being a problem. When you're really under full watt load, banging gears, going for them money shifts, it will not let you into gear. That is why I don't feel it's synchros. So you guys can argue with me, or you guys can agree with me. Whatever you want to do, I'm still going to show you the same install videos and the same process, and I'm going to tell you if this shit is worth the hype or if it doesn't fix the problem. These CHE torque limiters are supposed to be worth the hype. Everything I've gotten so far that was supposed to be hyped up has not yet been worth the hype, but we will see if this one is. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what these are about, and then we'll get on with the install. Alright, so we got the CHE Performance K-member brace out. Super simple. Basically, you're going to get a bolt over there, bolt over here. To mount this up, actually, it's going to be a bolt here and here, mount it up to the K-member. And then these eyelets right here over on these sides are going to get these bolts that go up to the transmission. You're going to see that these are adjustable braces with eyelets on one end and like polyurethane bushings on the other ends. And these are the bolts that probably go up to the K-member. So again, super simple setup. What this is supposed to do is essentially tie in the transmission to the K-member, which the K-member ties into the chassis and should basically, again, common sense, keep things from twisting up. So we're going to go ahead and get the Shelby up in the air on the quick jack. So we're going to get underneath it and we're going to show you guys the process. Super simple process. I think these things were $170, $175 shipped. Fingers crossed they fix my problems. But we'll go ahead and get it up the air. We'll show you the process and we'll give you an overview and let you know how we feel about them. Alright guys, so we got the GT500 in the air. We're getting ready to do a CHE torque brace install. First step you're going to do is remove the OEM K-member brace if your car has one. I can say mine is a 2007 and has one, and chances are if you have an 07, 09, you probably have one as well. So we're going to go ahead and get that removed because the CHE brace is going to go in place of that. So those are going to be, if we can get around here, those are going to be two 15 millimeters on this side and two 15 millimeters on that side to pop out this brace. So we'll get that off first. Alright, so you get the four 15 millimeter bolts out, and they have washers in the flanges, and the actual stud is pressed into the K-member brace itself. So that comes out, and you're going to put the CHE brace in return. You see the stock brace is out, and here's going to be an example of why I make these videos, guys. You can go by the instructions, but the instructions aren't always right. So chances are these instructions from CHE are quite outdated. You're going to see install the 10 millimeter bolts with the 17 millimeter bolt heads and a flat washer to the rear mounting holes, blah 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 blah. It's basically saying to mount this brace back in place where you took out the other brace, and it says you should have a 17 millimeter bolt head, which you do not, and it also says use flat washers, which it does not include. It does include big bolts and flat washers for a different area, but not for this area. So chances are they've updated this bolt and not updated the instructions. This is the bolt that goes in place. I want to say it's a 15 millimeter off the top of my head, but you can see it. That's a flange head bolt. And when this bolts down to this hole, you can see that it's going to pretty much cover up that whole area. So that flange is basically taking place of the washer. So I'm not going to put a washer in there, and this is, again, not a 17 millimeter, it's a 15 millimeter. So we're going to go ahead and get this placed up and bolt it up loosely and do a test fit. Alright, so next thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be removing a nut from over here and over here. These are the inboard control arm bolts. The outboard control arm bolts are up here. So you only want to remove the ones from the back of the K-member, and you're going to see that's going to have a metal tab in here
that's basically holding the pressure on the inside of the K-member. The K-member brace is going to be bolting up to that as well. This is going to be a 21 millimeter, and you're not going to be able to get a socket up there, at least if you have long tubes. You're only going to be able to get a wrench up there. This is where it would be nice to have a ratcheting wrench in a 21 millimeter, but I do not have that, so I got to try and do this forcefully with a regular wrench. So this will require a little bit of muscle, and you'll see that tab will move over to the side, and that will actually help you apply pressure to be able to spin this off. Alright, so we got this loose, and you want to keep the nut that I will show you here in a second. Alright, you will be tossing this. You will not be using this anymore because a bolt's going to be going in its place, but you will be keeping this nut because this nut is going to go on the top side. The brace is going to bolt in, and you're going to use the nut from the top. So you're going to see your CHE brace is going to, see if I can position this again. Alright, so the brace is going to go in like this. You're going to be using these inboard tabs here for those two bolts that I showed you earlier that were really 15 millimeters, and then you're going to see that brace or those bolts that you just removed with the wing nuts or whatever on them. You're going to be bolting up from there with the bigger bolts, and then using that nut again up top. So right now we're going to get these two bolts in here. We're going to leave this kind of loose so we can adjust everything around there and go from there. Alright, so we got the driver's side bolt started. We got the passenger side bolt started here, and again, we're not really going to snug these. We're just going to get a few threads started here so it can still be loose, and you'll start feeling when it wants to stop anyway. I don't think these are threaded. Oh, yeah, they are threaded all the way through, obviously, but the threads are a little bit tighter on this side, so it might have some paint or some debris in the threads there. We might have to chase those through. So you can see it's going to hang a little loose there, and then you're going to get the big bolts. They're going to pop up through, and we'll bolt those in. So here are the bolts you're going to be using for the standoffs. These are going to be a 22 millimeter on the actual bolt head, and then again the nut is going to be a 21 millimeter. So we're going to go ahead and get these started. Again, we're going to leave them loose so we can adjust everything through and make sure everything does fit properly. Again, this is kind of tight quarters with long tubes. I'm not sure if this is any easier at all with shorties or not, but it is tight with one tube on the long tubes. So be prepared to have a little bit of an issue getting tools up there. And that's why you want to keep these things loose, because you are going to have to shimmy stuff around here a little bit to get these stanchion bolts on and get everything lined up here in their channels properly. Again, we're not going tight on these, we are just snugging them. So that tightened up a little quicker. We'll back it off a couple threads just so we can position this around. Boom, still loose. Alright, go on to the other side. Hopefully this light is helping out for these videos. Guys, give me some feedback, let me know if this is working out better for the videos or not. That is the Milwaukee light that I showed you guys in another video. So everything is still loose there, and we'll get everything positioned, and we'll go through the torque sequences. I think these bottom bolts that are going in the control arms are going to be 100 foot-pounds, and these are like 25 foot-pounds. We're going to torque the bolts on the bottom. These are going to be 100 foot-pounds, as I mentioned earlier. So get the wrench up there. Alright, 100 foot-pounds. Go over to the other side. Foot-pounds, and then the rear flange bolts are 25 to 35 foot-pounds. So we're going to go right in the middle at 30 foot-pounds. So you should basically take almost no force to get 30 foot-pounds. 30 foot-pounds. 30 foot-pounds. Boom, good to go. Next up, we're going to get the braces, go up to the bolts of the transmission and get all that hooked up. Alright, next we're going to get onto the braces that bolt on the transmission. You're going to see the eyelets up top here, and you're going to see the bushings that actually go into those flanged ends of the K-member brace that we just installed. So we're going to go ahead, I'll show you how to get those installed and get those tightened up properly. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is get a 13 millimeter on the V8 models. Obviously GT500. You're going to do the bolt underneath the starter on the passenger side, and you're going to go completely adjacent across, and you're going to get the bolt directly parallel across from this. Basically, long story short, they are the bottommost bolts that are facing to the back of the car. So we will find our ratchet wherever that is, and we'll get these guys loosened up. Alright, so next thing you're going to do is you're going to basically loosen up the bushing assembly on these rods, and you're going to prep them to go into these flanges on here. So basically this is a 17 millimeter if it is tightened up. You go ahead and loosen this up, and then you're going to see this whole threaded rod is going to come off like this. You're going to get your jam nuts, you're going to have your washers, and you have your bushings. Basically you're going to loosen up the jam nuts completely off. You're going to take off the top washer, top bushing, and then it's going to go through the flange holes like this, and then you put your bushing back on and reverse the order. Alright, so looking at this with some common sense, the reason why obviously I could not get it on at full thread was because it was at full thread. So basically what you want to do is you want to back these jam nuts down a little bit so you can let this assembly hang. And then you can start screwing on the fully threaded rod that way, and then tighten it down. So their instructions aren't very clear on which one is suggested on the bolt holes to try, but what it does mention is if you have clearance issues to move to the other bolt hole. So what that is doing is they're talking about, depending on your long tubes, if you have long tubes that get in the way. So the assumption here is try on the inside holes that will kick these outboard more. And if your long tube collectors, if you have more aggressive long tubes than I have, if they're in the way, then you might have to come inboard to this hole here. So you'll see we don't have any clearance issues. We're going to keep this still a little bit on the looser side, just so we can move everything around. And we're going to go over the other side and mimic the same thing. Next up here, when you do have these limiters in place, is now you're going to tighten the bottom lock nut. So basically, you're just going to take that bottom lock nut, and we'll take the top one up a little bit. You're going to get the bottom lock nut down and twist this, get this into place. And you want to tighten this enough that these compress and the bushings do not exceed the width of the bottom washer. So we'll put our 17 millimeter on here, and actually we're going to need another 17 millimeter up top here. We'll see how much this compresses. So there are 3 different lengths of bolts here that they give you. For the GT500, or what they suggest is to get the bolt that is to the closest length of the stock bolts. You're going to see these are the smallest ones, and that little bit of a difference there in bolt size is going to be for that eyelet. So for the 0709 GT500s, at the very least, you're going to be using the smallest bolts, it looks like. I'm actually going to take another stab at this. What I realized is I don't think I had these adjusted correctly. I think what you want to do is you want to bottom out these jam nuts on both sides, bottom it out on this side, and you want to screw this all the way down. Yeah, so you want to screw the threaded end all the way down, bottom it out. You want to loosen up this top nut, screw in the eyelet all the way down, and you want these bottomed out on both sides. Then what you want to do is hold the eyelet, and you want to screw out on this, on the adjustment rod to open it up to get the bolt in, and then you screw in on the adjustment rod to pull it down and compress it and hold it into place, or else the threads aren't going to match up and they're not going to lock out the proper way on each side. So we're going to try this again. I'm going to open, hold up on here and just open up on this end and get these to open up. Alright, so you're going to hold the eyelet end and you're going to adjust the rod out as long as it's not locked. There we go. Adjust the rod out, a couple threads until you can get the bolt through that hole without any stress. And you'll see as you start pulling in or out on this, the bolt will go in or out easily, or it won't. So you want to get that right in the middle there, and then you know you have proper alignment on these sides before you get the washers in, and then you have equal threads on each side of this to be able to tighten it and lock these down, or else you'll end up with too much threads on this end and not enough on that end, etc., and then things won't line up right. We're going to do our 33 foot-pounds again. And then we will try and adjust these. Alright, still set for 33. We're good. 33. Here's where things are tight when you're underneath the car. We've got a big ass torque wrench. 33. Alright, so now what you should be able to do is take your 17 millimeter and you want to adjust to your left to tighten these down. think you want to give these too much tension. Once you have them where you think you want them, you're going to go down on the top nuts. To lock these into place. And then you're going to go up on the bottom nuts to lock them into place. And again, there is still a slight variation with these. This side doesn't look like it tightened down enough. Okay, so now I think I have these where I want them adjusted. We're going to hold the rod so the rod doesn't move. And we're going to tighten the jam nuts. Alright, jam nuts tightened on that side. And that is my light telling me this took longer than what anticipated. Alright, jam nut tightened. Jam nut tighten, and these should be now good to go and properly adjusted. So we are officially done with the CHE torque brace installs. Overall, everything was easy. It doesn't really take much effort. It's really only a couple bolts. It's just the adjustment, understanding how the adjustment work on those ends. That's kind of where I fucked up. I haven't done those type of rod ends for a long time, and it even says about it how to adjust them, but it's not overly clear. And then you get that aha moment and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I was supposed to do. So I got everything adjusted tight. The why I think is tight, you don't want to super cinch down on things. You don't want to pull the transmission down. You just want to get the transmission, everything snug to where the transmission is not going to move. So don't pull it down, don't push it up. You want it straight, you just don't want it to move. Once you get everything in that adjustment, you tighten up those lock nuts, and then as you're banging gears, it's not going to be able to twist and go up and down and move. That is what you want. That is what attributes to lockout. Again, I don't know if this is going to fix all my problems, but it should fix a good large percentage of the problems. So we're going to get the car down, we're going to take it to the track, we're going to do some pulls on the street, we're going to see how everything goes. If you guys have questions about the install, something wasn't clear, please let me know. I know you guys probably want to see some before and after runs of how this stuff works, but that's not what these videos are about. These videos are about installing it, and then I will come back later and give impressions on did this part work or did it not work. So I hope you guys appreciate and understand and like the angle that I'm taking with these videos. If you don't, let me know. But I'm trying to cut these down, make them a little bit shorter for you guys, and show you how to install the stuff and why we're installing it, and then later get back to did it work. So catch me in the next one. I have more parts. I have a line lock kit there that's getting ready to get installed next, and we're going to try out some things, get back to the track. It's getting ready to start cooling down here at the end of the summer, so hopefully we're going to hit that 1099 goal on 20s before I turn the car up at all. That's what the goal is. Fingers crossed, guys. We're going to see how it goes. Let me know your feelings, thoughts, insight, and we'll catch you back on another video, and thanks for watching.